Hi, I'm Kathy from Quilt Beginnings in Columbus, Ohio, and we are back for our final Kona quilt of the month. This month we're going to tackle two quilts that are very similar but a little different. Our first one is over here. It is the Elements quilt. So here's your kit and all your fabrics, and as usual they are put in the order of the kit, so make sure you label your fabrics when you pull them all out. And this quilt looks like it's really simple. There's really only one small area that's a little bit tricky. One thing is that they do recommend that you press all your seams open, and in my mind that's a lot more effort than it's worth, because almost every single set of these strip sets is sewn to a solid rectangle, which makes it a lot easier to make things fit. However, there are a couple spots where the lines actually match up with each other. And in these cases, so there's a case here, there's one here, and then there's a last one here. And in each of these areas, we need the seams to actually press the opposite direction. So you might have to do a little like re-ironing to make sure that things are flipping the right way. What I would recommend is pressing the whites, the black and whites always to the white, and press everything else to the black. And then the only place you'd have to adjust is right here where the black and white go with more black and white. And then here you'd have to do a minor adjustment with these guys, flipping them towards the white since these would go towards their dark. I do want to talk about our 1/4 inch seam allowance with this one, because 1/4 inch makes a big difference on this quilt. So let's go over and I'll show you what I did. So here we are at the cutting station, and these are, I can't even remember how many it was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sets of the black and white stripped together. And I just wanted to show you that this one was stitched with a scant 1/4 inch, which means I was slightly under my 1/4 inch foot, just a thread or two. And this one was a full 1/4 inch, where I was right along the edge of my 1/4 inch foot. And I don't know if you can see this, you should. This is a full 1/2 inch longer, and actually the scant 1/4 is the one that is the correct size. This one, I would have to really distort it. You can see how it will pull, so if you needed to stretch it, you could, but it's a lot more comfortable if after you iron and you lay it down, you get that extra 1/2 inch seam allowance that'll be consumed a 1/4 inch on each side. So this is one where I would actually sew a practice strip set or two and make sure you can see how subtle it is as it moves. But look at how much ground I've accumulated loss over here. By the time I get to that, 14th and 15th strip, it really starts to accumulate. So absolutely test yourself, sew some strips together and measure, and make sure that you're ending up at the right spot before you sew all those strips together and realize your seam allowance is just slightly too deep. They look really similar. So that's my big advice with this one. When you come to put it all together, we'll come back over to the quilt. It's nice because you have these two fabrics that are all rectangular, and so a lot of them they have you put it together in these sections, and then you put this section together. So you're going to follow your layout as they give it to you, but a lot of these go straight to a rectangle. So this is going to be the indicator of what the true size is. You need these to measure. The only exception is in here, where you have this set match with these two sets match with this one. And that's why we want to make sure we press these in the opposite direction. Otherwise, the quilt really goes together pretty easily, but watch that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so that's it for the Elements quilt. Okay, so now we're moving on to In Full Flight. And again, the colors are in the order. This really is the easiest quilt that they've given us yet. It does have you cut lots of strips for all the different colors of fabric. They're all 2.5 inch strips. And it has you make a different number. It's very laid out in the pattern, a different number of blocks depending on which color you're working from. You know me, I prefer to sew strips together and then subcut into the unit that it needs to be. The pattern tells you to go ahead and cut all of these strips into 8.5 inch units. I prefer to work with half strips instead of whole strips. I think they're a lot easier at the ironing board. And then I go ahead and subcut. So we'll go over to the cutting station and I'll show you how I take it from there. So here's a half strip set. And out of each half strip set, I'm going to get two 8.5 inch blocks. I do want to make sure that my strip set, if I measure from the bottom to the top, is 8.5, because we're going to really pay attention to that 1/4 inch seam allowance again. Again, a scant quarter works the best for these strip sets. And then I'm just going to cut off my cleaning edge. It gives me a very squared up block when I do it this way. I'm going to come over 8.5. This is a 6.5 inch ruler, so add 2 inches to it. And come over 8.5 again. And I get my 2 blocks from my strip set. And then these should be the same size. So they should go the same on top of each other as this way. Then you know that your strip sets are sewn with a great scant 1/4 inch. After that, you're just going to add sashings. These I would go ahead and pre-cut. This isn't, but I would go ahead and pre-cut them to the size they need. And then if you look back up at the quilt, they're just added to the sides. So it's added here, and then not, and then added and not. So it divides the row. The rows are then separated by one long strip for each of these. So this one goes together really easily. It's going to be a final, we made it to the end. I really hope that you guys kept up with all these quilts. There was a lot to do this year. 12 quilts in 1 year, 1 a month is a lot, but I think it's great. These have all been beautiful projects. I've seen lots of you bring them in, so keep sharing, and we'll look forward to seeing you in another program.